love flowers. I mean, being able to see every new flower added each year adds to the intense nostalgia of Minecraft, where, from the oldest flowers to the newest, all of them have some point in time connected to it. So I thought, why not dedicate a part of my world to only flowers? By making an underground enchanted garden, I can collect every type of flower in the game and display them to be appreciated for what they are, a history of the game. But with every update, being able to get specific flowers becomes increasingly more difficult, because trying to get the new 1.20 flowers means finding a sniffer which can only be obtained 6% of the time in one biome only, so collecting every type of flower is no easy task. Especially since you also must get the wither, which takes 3 skulls, each only dropping 1 out of every 40 times to kill another mob for the wither rose. Plus, you kind of have to kill the wither, which, full transparency, I've never done. Anyways, just clicking on this video is super helpful, but if you also want to like or subscribe, I would really appreciate it. It's free, super quick, it shows that you guys are enjoying this series, and you can always change your mind. Okay, I want to get started on working on this project as fast as possible, so quite obviously the first thing that I should be doing is collecting up a lot of the basic flowers so that I can get started on this building as fast as possible. And then once I have all of these, it's going to be a lot easier to start working on some of the harder flowers like the torch flower as well as the wither rose, which are going to take a lot more work because they require a lot of different materials to be able to even get close to making. I cleared out a shulker box and I'm going to use this one to collect up all of the flowers and keep my resources in here. And one thing I'm really thankful for is that I've explored this world enough to know where a lot of biomes are for the biome dependent flowers that I'm going to need to collect. I've collected up a lot of these, and thankfully right next to me is a giant flower forest that I found close to my base in the last episode, and so I can just collect the flowers from over here and then I can get started on building. I'm going to collect up multiple of the flowers so it looks more like a garden and less like a showcase of the flowers. Now that I've collected up most of the flowers and I put them into my shulker box, I can get started on heading back to my base and creating the outline for where I want to make this garden so that I can get started on the build, and then I can begin working on collecting up the torch flower, pitcher pod, as well as the wither rose. I slept the rainstorm off, and now I'm going to have to find a good place to actually build this, as I'm not completely sure where I want to have this. I feel like over here might not work because there's already a cave sort of connected to there, and I don't want it to like impede on the rest of my build, so maybe back here in the corner and I can make it look kind of cool. I have to decide, and then I can get working on this. I decided on the little corner over here, and I'm going to dig into the side of the mountain with TNT until I get the right shape and size that I want for this garden, and then I can get started on actually decorating the interior, but for now I just need to dig out a hole big enough to actually build the garden inside of. And because I'm using TNT, this place is going to need a lot of cleanup until it's completely done, but for now I think that it's okay. I'm going to have to remember to light this place up so that it doesn't become a giant mob farm, because that would also not be very good. I've blown up a lot of this land and it actually came up with a shape that I really like. I might have to make it smaller or larger depending on when I start building, because this is a pretty good shape as far as I can tell, but sometimes what I can see and when I start building are two different things, so I might have to change it around a little bit. But for now, I'm going to go to sleep and then I can start working on the other sections of this, as it's not going to be a specifically easy project and I'm going to have to start on collecting up some rare materials so that I can actually get this thing done. The first thing I'm going to get working on, which is a little bit more difficult, is flying out to a warm ocean so that I can start looking for a sniffer egg hidden in suspicious sand, because I'm pretty sure that's the only place where it can spawn. And I know that there's a warm ocean past here. That's my ancient city, so I know that it's way past here. And once I get out there, I can get the sniffer eggs, come back and plant them, and then they can give me 2 of the rare flowers that I'm going to need to incorporate into this build. Now that I'm way out here, I have to look for structures in this giant coral reef, which is not as easy as it seems, so hopefully this doesn't take too long, and I really haven't done this before, so I have no idea what this should look like. I'm just hoping it is fast and easy. I found my first ocean ruin, and I'm going to try to look for the suspicious sand. Maybe I can find it super fast and be super lucky, but I have no idea. I think I want 1, and then if I get lucky I can have 2 so that I can breed them and then have infinite sniffers, which would be pretty nice. Curse of Vanishing Fishing Rod. Now that is what I call a catch. Oh my gosh, wait. Okay, I do not need this axe. Oh, that is so fortunate. That actually did not take as long as I was expecting, which is super nice. And here is a second one, which is all of the things that I need so I can breed these back in my base. And there's even a third one, which is so much better. And after finding 3 different sniffer eggs, I can finally go home. So long story short, I got a little bit lost and I kind of don't know where I am except for that I'm right next to an ocean monument and I'm super far away from my base with 5 rockets left. I'm like halfway through the journey and I'm actually kind of close to my gunpowder farm. Wait. Is that a swamp? That's actually so fortunate. I did not know that there was a swamp near this base. Oh, that's so nice, and I can get the blue orchids from over here, which is the last biome-dependent flower that I needed. Okay, I made it safely back to a base, and thankfully it didn't take too long with too many mishaps, only 1 or 2 stray baby zombies. And now I can head back over to my gunpowder farm. I can collect up a few more rockets because I kind of ran out midway through an ocean, which was a little bit scary, so thankfully I'm okay. And then I can head back over to my other enchanted forest base and I can get started on decorating the interior of this garden. But before I go over to my cherry blossom base, I'm going to make a quick pit stop at this swamp because it was only a few hundred blocks away from my trading hall, and I'm going to try to bone meal the grass to get blue orchids. And with this, hopefully... Oh, yeah, that doesn't take long at all. That's super nice, and I can collect up a bunch of these. Now that I'm back at this base, I'm going to plant 1 of my sniffers, and then hopefully nothing goes wrong. I think if you plant them on moss, they hatch faster, but he should be safe in here because there's not a bunch of mobs that spawn usually. I've lit up the area pretty well, and I can wait for him to hatch, and then I can see if he gives me flowers. And after AFKing for a little while, it did not take long at all for him to hatch. So thankfully he's safe in here, and I think that as babies they can still give me the pitcher pods and the torch flower seeds, but I'm not quite sure. And now that my sniffer is safe and all I have to do is wait before he gives me the pitcher pod and the torch flower seeds, I can start collecting up resources to decorate the interior of this garden. And I'm going to start over here in my spruce forest, and I'll see what I can come up with. I'm back at this space. I collected up a bunch of wood and I planted the other 2 sniffer eggs onto the ground so that they'll hatch. This guy is still doing pretty okay. I don't know how long it takes them to grow, but hopefully he gives me the things that I need pretty fast because I'm a little bit impatient when it comes down to things. But now I can get started on decorating. I'm going to get started on the entrance of this thing. I honestly kind of want to make it look like it's an overgrown mine shaft, and then when you go inside you're like covered in a bunch of really pretty flowers and plants, although I'm not completely sure, and I'm definitely going to have to mess around with the way that this looks once or twice before I get it right. But once I come up with something good, I can get started on working on the exterior and the entrance, and then I can move into the interior of this until I get something that I like, and hopefully I can get it done to my liking. I don't know. I feel like this entrance really works. The mix of the oak and the spruce look pretty good, and it's super easy to walk up and down, which is sort of what I wanted. I don't want it to be a really inconvenient entrance. I finished the entrance of this. I think it looks pretty good and it's super easy to walk up and down, and now I'm going to get out a few more of my resources and I can get started on decorating the interior of this so that it looks a little bit more alive, and I can create like an outline and a base for it, and then I can start adding things on until it looks like a beautiful overgrown enchanted garden. One thing I kind of want to incorporate is a mix of oak logs and spruce planks, and I think I'm going to try to do that by making these big like root-like things come and connect into the center, sort of like this, and I can see what I can come up with, but I sort of want it to connect into the middle. This is what I came up with for the oak logs, and I think that this looks pretty good. I'm gonna see what I can come up with for this. I'm gonna attach it a little bit more to the middle so that the middle sort of looks like it's the trunk of the tree and the other ones are branches coming out, and I feel like I can make this look really cool and be like a centerpiece of this build. I added a bunch of spruce planks, which I think looks really good. I think these 2 colors work really well together, and like the warmth of the spruce really complements the oak, which I think looks really cool, and I'm going to try to repeat this on a bunch of different sides so that the center looks like the trunk and there's a bunch of different branches coming out throughout this build. I finished with a bunch of these tree branches, and I really like the way that it splits up the build. I think I'm going to make it so that different sections of flowers fit between the different slices of the tree branches, which I think is going to really break up the garden and make it a little bit more cohesive when I really think about it, so that everything has its own section and can stand out a little bit more, which I really like. And now I'm going to head back over and collect up some moss so that I can decorate the inside. I made a quick stop at the lush cave near my villager trading hall, and now I can use the moss that I collected and bone meal it up with a bunch of the bones that I've collected in the past episodes to start working on the floor. But first, I think I'm going to make a path down here so that the whole build has a path going through it, and you're not just like walking through a bunch of flowers, but instead you're like walking through the garden. And I think the fastest method of actually making this floor is to just bone meal a bunch of these moss blocks so that I can have a mossy, lush cave floor. And I can see how, okay, it does not change the oak and the spruce blocks, which I need. I'm gonna have to break this. Oh, that is not pretty, but I'm going to bone meal the floor. Now that the floor is in, I'm going to have to get started on actually working on these walls so that they're not just plain stone, and each one of them is going to look a little bit different, and they're each going to have their own like specialty build connected to it, but I think overall all of the different walls are going to look good together. They're just not all going to be the same. And with that, the outline of the interior is done. I'm just going to have to add a lot of flowers, and I'm going to make a display case for the rare flowers, as well as I'm going to add in a few beehives, which I've collected in the shulkered box, so that I can really make this place come to life with actual life, and I can have like little bees buzzing around the flowers. And after a while, I had to put these Sniffers on a lead because they decided to start running away into the cherry blossom forest next to my build, but they're all on a leash, and so now I'm going to take them off. I need to actually find the leads and then walk them around to see if they can pull out anything and sniff anything. But while I'm doing so, I also need a name for these three. I don't know if you have to name tag them and they despawn. I really hope not, but if you guys want to give them names, I have a bunch of name tags. Okay, wait, I think that this means that he's gonna pull something up. Oh, that is so nice. That did not take long at all. Oh my gosh, and it's the other torch flower seeds. So both of these I actually already have, which is super nice. And I don't know how you get more seeds. I think it... Oh my gosh, these things work so fast. This is such a nice thing. Oh, I'm so glad that I got 2 of these. 3 of these, actually. That worked so fast. And really quick, because I'm already distracted, I'm just going to plant the torch flower in the pitcher pod, and then I can set up the displays that I'm going to have on the inside of my garden for each one of these specialty flowers. And I can just grow these because I already have a bunch of bone meal, which is going to be super fast and easy. Oh, that is such a pretty flower. And I'm also going to plant my pitcher pods, and hopefully these also can grow super fast. And there we go. I can put these in the display case that I make for them. And now that I've put myself back on task, I'm going to get started on decorating the interior of this with the actual flowers. The first section I'm going to do, like I mentioned beforehand, is all of the basic plains biome flowers, and I'm just going to try to intersperse them so that it really does come alive, but this section is not supposed to be extremely extravagant, and so I can get started on working on all of these. And as biased as it is, these are going to be the best flowers, which are the lilies, the pink petals, the blue orchids, and the alliums, and so I'm going to put the pink petals in between these, and this side is going to be my favorites. I'm going to make the centerpiece sort of near the trunk of the tree, covered in tulips, because I think the uniformity of all of them makes it look really good. And the sunflowers are going to be their own section because they're not technically tall flowers, nor are they part of the plain section. Lastly are going to be all of the tall flowers, which I made over here. And over here, I'm going to get working on 3 different displays for the 3 rarest flowers so that they have their own special section. I put both the torch flower and the pitcher plant into their separate sections, and that pretty much leaves one thing left to do, which is collect up the wither rose. But right before I do so, I want to decorate the exterior of this place, so I'm going to get started on that. I had some people in the last video tell me that it would be really nice if I incorporated some custom trees, so I'm going to do that on the outside of this so that it really stands out from the rest of the build and I can connect it up with a path. And then, once I was done building, it was finally time for me to start working on getting the hardest flower overall, which was the wither rose, which is only dropped after the wither kills a separate mob, meaning I would have to kill the wither and get the wither to kill a separate mob for me to even be able to collect this, which was no easy task. Quite obviously for this, I'm going to have to head to the nether, but the first thing I'm going to do is not actually start collecting wither skulls, but instead head over to my other base and go to my brewery so that I can brew up potions of poison and collect up a bunch of eggs so that I can have chickens and then poison them so they die from one hit from the wither, because I don't really have a second chance at this. I made a quick pit stop at my trading hall and got some of the eggs from my chickens. I have 10 currently, but I want to get about 2 stacks of 16 so that I can have enough for the wither to drop a few wither roses because I think that they're a good thing to have. And thankfully it didn't take very long for me to brew up the splash potions of poison as I already had all of the ingredients sitting around my brewery. And now that I'm done with the tedious section of this, I'm actually going to have to head over and go to my fortress and then start killing up withers. And thankfully I have looting 3, which makes this a lot easier, but I have no idea how long this is going to take. Once I head in here, thankfully I can just block off a lot of these paths, so I'm not putting myself in severe danger. It's just going to be a very tedious task. Wait, there's the first one! Oh, that is so nice. That actually did not take as long as I was expecting. And there we go. That's 1 down, 2 to go. Oh, there's my second one. There's my third one. The third one took significantly longer to get than the first and the second. And finally, after about an hour in that fortress, I can go home because that was kind of very nerve-wracking and I don't really like to spend a lot of time in the nether, let alone fortresses. And after all of that, I'm done, and it's finally time that I can go to the end and kill a wither, as I'm going to be doing this the scaredy cat way, as I really don't think I'm strong enough to try to beat the wither by myself, and it's my first time ever trying to beat the wither, so I'm going to do it this way, and at some point in the future, I might try to beat it head on, but for now, I'm just doing this to collect wither roses. I've watched a lot of tutorials on how to do this the correct way, so I think I'm going to dig under here and then it'll suffocate in the bedrock. I'm just hoping that I don't accidentally mess something up, because a lot of the comments on those YouTube videos said that if you do something significantly or even barely wrong, it can go really bad. And if I did this right, which I really hope I did, this should perfectly work. I spawned all of my chickens in, I poisoned them so they only have half a heart at the moment and will immediately die on sight from the wither exploding, and I just have to spawn him. So hopefully he stays trapped, because if not, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Okay, I'm gonna run away so I don't die from the immediate explosion, because that's the scariest thing. And if he breaks out, I'll pretty much know immediately. Oh, actually, I think he's trapped. I turned down my volume because that was very painful on my ears, but I think that if I can go down here... Oh yeah, I see all of the wither roses. I can come down here and just start killing him, and he's completely and totally trapped and won't get hit out, which is super nice, and I can kill him from here. And I got the wither roses, which was the main section of this that I actually needed to do. And after a few more hits, he will be done. And we got another star, which is another thing that's super duper nice, but for how long it took me to actually prepare for that, that was about 1 minute worth of actually fighting, and so I don't know how worth it was. I feel like if I was facing him head on, it would have been a lot more intimidating. And finally, after I slept off a thunderstorm that I was spawned into, I can come down here and finally plant this wither rose into its enclosure, and then seal it off so that if I ever come down into here and look at my garden, I don't just immediately get poisoned with wither, because I feel like that's something that could very likely happen. I'm going to cover it up with black stained glass. I gave it the same sort of enclosure that I gave both the pitcher plant and the torch flower. And after all of that, I'm very proud of the way that this turned out. I feel like the entire garden looks so beautiful, and I'm really proud of myself for being able to do something I've never done before, which was kill the wither, which was incredibly nerve-wracking, all for the sake of a flower, but I'm glad I did it, and I'm excited to try to do it in the future, but less cheating next time. And after all of that, there's still one more thing that I think that I can do. So I guess I have a beacon now, which is kind of nice. I mean, that wasn't the goal, but it's still somewhat cool.